Welcome to this week's real estate deal breakdown. And on this video, it's going to be, I think, either part 2 or part 3 on a property that I did in Seattle that ultimately lost a little bit of money. So if you are a real estate investor and you want to be in this business for the long haul, once in a while, you're going to do a bad deal and it's going to lose some money. And today I'm going to tell you all about what happened with this property, why it resulted in a loss, and what lessons you can take from this. So you hopefully don't have to make them in your own business. So if you're not familiar with me, my name is Greg. I've been a full-time investor now for 10 years. I've done at this point almost 500 properties, and I've learned a lot of lessons through that journey so far. So if you get value from this and you're watching it, if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the video, it would really mean a lot. And that's how we grow the show. So let's get started. This is a property. I've done videos on this before. I believe there was a part 1 where I talked about the numbers, and I think the part 2 may have been actually me at the site walking around showing you the property. So the property since then has sold, and it ended up losing about $4,000 in net loss. And it'll be a little bit less when I get my insurance refund, but at the end of the day, a loss is a loss in the real estate business. And I'm just going to start with the numbers first, and then I'll actually break down what happened and why the deal ended up losing some money. So the property was purchased for $375,000. The property had a $25,000 renovation done to it, and the property was sold for $460,000. So if we look at the high-level gross numbers, what is that, an $85,000 gross margin in there? But that didn't account for any of the costs, which would be the rehab cost of $25,000. The excise tax when I sold it, which was almost $8,000. The realtor bill on this, which was $23,000 or something like that. Title and escrow fees on the purchase, title and escrow fees on the resale, and then, of course, the interest that was paid to borrow the money to do the deal. So with all of those costs blended together, it lost $4,000. So what ended up happening here? Why did that occur? So first things first, when I originally bought the property, I believe I mentioned this on my other video, I believe the ARV on this property was $500,000. And the reason I arrived at that number at the time, more on that later, is the neighbor literally sold for $515,000 and it was in worse shape than my property, literally black and white. And then there was a property, I believe a street down, same exact thing, sold for $520,000. So I'm thinking in my head, if this gets listed for $499,000, AKA $500K, that's lower than the other properties that have sold. And that should, warrant a 500 sale, if not more, depending on the demand. So that's exactly what happened. The property got listed for $499,000, and I thought it was going to be an absolute no pants party here, and it was going to be an absolute just blow it off the roof kind of sale where multiple offers, highest and best, pinning people against each other, the stuff you want to see when you're flipping a house on the sale side. That was not the case. That was absolutely not the case. There was pretty much no interest right off the bat. Barely any likes on Zillow, barely any showings. And that's just the result of the market. Our plan, our marketing plan, everything was done well. Everything was executed well. Marketing was good. The pictures were good. Everything made sense except for that pesky price. So after about 2 weeks on the market with 0 offers, we decided to lower the property. And this is the realtor and myself collectively. We lowered it $5,000. We figured, okay, we dropped the price. We show people we want to sell, and hopefully that warrants some offers, and that didn't happen. So we had a few showings. People didn't like it. They didn't like the location. They didn't like the product, whatever the case might have been. And mind you, this was a 0 lot line townhome, which just means in English that it was a townhouse in an urban area with a very minimal HOA. The HOA on this property was $10 a month, AKA $120 a year. So it was practically nothing. Another price cut we do, no offers. Now it's sitting for about a month and we have no offers, and we've had some showings and no one's really interested. So at this point, the property got stale. And when a property gets stale, it's not good because now, people see that your home has been on the market. You've been trying to lower the price, and there's really not a lot of demand. So anybody who's actually interested is probably going to come in with a lower offer than normal. So lower the price again. That didn't do much because the demand just wasn't there. As this is happening, I'm starting to notice the overall Seattle real estate market is starting to decline. So basically, by the time I bought this property till the time I sold it, the townhouse market in this specific area, which is in the Beacon Hill area, dropped about 13%, which kind of sucks. So after the property sat for, at this point, 45 days, we dropped the price again, and we did a little virtual staging. So it was 4 price reductions, and we finally got somebody who was interested. But the bad news on that good news was that the offer was 450 and I listed it for 500. That was essentially most of the profit. And we did a counter at 460. And at this point in my head, I said, I just want to sell this property. I don't care if it breaks even. I don't care if it loses a little bit of money. I just want to get this inventory off of my books by the end of the year. That's my objective. So they agreed to the counter offer. They signed and they said, we're going to do a 3-week escrow and we're just going to do an inspection for informational purposes only. And now here's a tip for you from a black belt who's been doing this business for 10 years. If anybody says they're doing an inspection for informational purposes only, it is a big, steaming, stinky pile of BS. So they did an inspection for informational purposes only. And that information resulted in about an 11-item inspection repair list. And I agreed to do the top 4 items, which was a new roof, new windows, smoke detectors, which is logical, and something else. I forget the other thing. But anyway, I agreed to do that because I knew if I told these buyers to pound off, which was not a smart idea, there might not be another offer coming anytime soon. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. We scheduled the closing and then ended up selling last week. And it was a $4,000 loss, which is not bad. I've lost more money before in the past. And if you're in this business for a while, it's going to happen once in a while. So what are some lessons that you can learn from this property that you need to apply in your business to mitigate losses if possible? Well, the first lesson is this. Real estate is only about supply and demand. If you have a lot of demand, AKA buyers and offers, for a limited amount of supply, i.e. not a lot of inventory, and people interested in your property, not only are you going to get your list price, but you're going to get more than your list price because there's going to be multiple offers which will kick off a highest and best. Now, this was the opposite. There was other inventory available that was similar, and there was not a lot of demand, and there was a good amount of supply, i.e. low offer. That's lesson number 1. Supply and demand is key. Lesson number 2. When you want to sell a property, when you don't have a lot of demand and there's a good amount of supply, which exactly was what happened here, you need to not be a pig if you're the seller. You need to figure out your objective or your bottom line, and you need to optimize to get that. In this case, my objective was to sell the house, and my bottom line was ultimately at a loss because I did not care. I'm not emotional with my flips. This is inventory. This is product I'm trying to sell that I own, just like any other business. And my objective was to sell the property. It wasn't to make money. It wasn't to break even. It was to sell the property at any cost, within reason, obviously. So don't get greedy when you're selling a property. Don't do it. It doesn't make any sense. If you know you don't have a lot of leverage as a seller and there's not a lot of demand for your property, you're probably going to have to settle for whatever offer you get. And in this case, our first offer, which was our only offer, was our best offer, and it ended up working out. That's the second lesson. Don't get emotional. Take your losses. Understand what your objective is. Don't get emotional in the flips. Sell them, move on, recoup your capital, and get out of there. Third lesson, final lesson on this video, is that if you're house flipping and you buy, renovate, and sell properties for a living like I do, not every deal is going to be a home run. You could run the numbers on a spreadsheet. You could go on Redfin, Zillow, the MLS, whatever you want to do, PropStream, Batch. You could run comps all day long until you have, gray hair. It doesn't matter until you list your house. The comps made sense when I bought it. The comps didn't make sense when I sold it. As I like to say, that's baseball. I call balls and strikes for a living. I buy houses and sell them and usually make money. Once in a while, we'll lose money. And if you're in the game for a while, it will happen to you. I can promise you. If you have not lost money on a flip, or if you have not broke even on a flip, you have not done enough flips. Even if you run your numbers perfectly, not every project's going to work out. And that's the facts. That's the real estate God saying, are you really serious about this business or are you a pretender? So that's the deal in Seattle. Thank goodness it sold. I'm grateful that it sold. I'm grateful I got most of my money back, even though I lost $4,000 on that. And if you are in the Seattle area, or you're in the Hudson Valley, or you're in the state of Delaware, and you have a house you want to wholesale to me, if the numbers make sense, I'll buy it. Even if I lose money, I'll buy it. If I agree to buy it, I will buy it. If you want a JV wholesale deal with me and split the profits, send me an email, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com, or send me a DM on Instagram if you have a deal you want to work with me on. And until the next video, I hope you got value from this. This was an interesting lesson. I'll see you on the next REI deal breakdown. Take care.